This is Alexandra Kitty, and you're listening to Officer Down, a podcast about true crime cases when their victim is in law enforcement. Today, we're going to talk about the murder of Gail and Adrienne Cobb. She was the first Black female police officer killed in the line of duty. Her story is tragic, and many people don't know about it. And I thought this should be something that we should do. So here we go. Gail Adrienne Cobb was born on August 17, 1950 in Washington, D.C., the second of 5 children. She grew up in a row house near the intersection of 14th and D Streets in Northeast Washington. Her family had moved to the district in the 1930s, and both parents were deeply connected to public service. Her father, Clinton Cobb, worked as a correctional captain for the District of Columbia. Ironically, he had applied to join the Metropolitan Police Department in 1953, but was rejected because he fell short of the mandatory height requirement of 5 feet 8 inches. Her mother, Gloria Cobb, worked as a crossing guard at Kingsman Elementary School, where she had met Clinton at Cardozo High School. The family remained close-knit, with Gail's sister Denise becoming a school teacher. As a child, Cobb attended Catholic elementary school and was described as an average but creative and energetic student. She progressed through Elliott Junior High School, Eastern High School, and ultimately graduated from St. Celia's Academy in 1969. Upon graduation, Cobb aspired to become a successful fashion designer, but with little means or knowledge of how to pursue that dream, she ended up working as a telephone operator. At the age of 19, on February 26, 1970, Cobb gave birth to a son, Damon Demetrius Cobb. The father, whom she had met and dated in high school, took no responsibility for the child. As a single mother, Cobb raised Damon while living with her parents. By October 1973, Cobb applied to the Metropolitan Police Department to become a federal police officer, much to the surprise of her family and friends. Her decision came at a pivotal time. The federal government had recently lowered the mandatory height requirement for police officers to 5 feet, removing a significant barrier that had prevented women from joining the force. At exactly 5 feet tall, Cobb now met the requirements. She graduated with her Metropolitan Police Academy class in April 1974, part of a 34-member class that included 13 women police cadets, the largest graduating class of female police officers in the United States at the time. Cobb was well liked by her trainers, who noted she was hardworking and deeply committed to serving her community. During her training and brief career, Cobb demonstrated exceptional dedication. She spent most of her patrol work on foot and volunteered for police training to obtain a motorcycle license. Additionally, she took night classes to learn sign language to better communicate with the deaf population in the city. Her commitment to professionalism was evident in her daily routine. She believed in showing up to work looking sharp in her uniform. So we can see she was dedicated, she was hardworking, and she was willing to learn. So this is everything you would want in a protector. And yet something went horribly wrong. So let's go over the timeline of events of September 20th, 1974. The events that would lead to Officer Cobb's death began late in the morning of Friday, September 20th, 1974, around 10:30 a.m. 2 men had set an elaborate plan in motion. John Curtis Dortch, a 29-year-old Howard University graduate and former U.S. Army soldier from Silver Spring, Maryland, and John William Bryant, a 24-year-old man from Washington, D.C. The 2 men were part of a larger conspiracy to rob the Eastern Liberty Federal Savings and Loan Bank located at 1st and L Streets Northwest. Disguised as construction workers, each man carried a loaded sawed-off shotgun and handgun. However, unbeknownst to them, 2 plainclothes police officers had been alerted of the robbery in advance by an informant. Before the would-be robbers could even enter the bank, the plainclothes officer spotted them on the street and stopped them to ask for identification. Sensing they had been discovered, both men fled in separate directions. During Dortch's confrontation with police, his sawed-off shotgun discharged, causing powder burns under his eye, though no one else was injured. Dortch managed to shed his construction clothing in a nearby warehouse and, dressed in civilian clothes, blended into pedestrian traffic, caught a bus, and escaped. At the time of the incident, Officer Gail Cobb was still on probationary duty, only 6 months out of the academy. She was assigned to foot patrol duty downtown, approximately 1 block away from the bank. While writing a traffic ticket, a concerned citizen approached her and reported seeing an armed man run into a parking garage at 20th Street and L Street Northwest. Cobb immediately followed the suspect and found him inside the underground parking garage, where he was in the process of changing out of his construction worker disguise. She confronted Bryant and ordered him to place his hands on the wall. As she reached for her radio to call for backup, the suspect spun around and fired a single gunshot at point-blank range. The bullet's trajectory was devastating. It first struck Cobb's wrist, shattering a wristwatch that her mother had given her as a birthday present. The bullet then passed through her police radio before penetrating her heart. Officer Gail Cobb died at the scene. She was just 24 years old. Responding officers immediately arrested Bryant at the scene. Meanwhile, Dortch, who was not present when Officer Cobb was killed, heard about the shooting on the radio and surrendered to police shortly thereafter. Both men were subsequently charged in connection with Officer Cobb's death. John Willie Bryant, the triggerman, was initially charged with first-degree felony murder. During trial proceedings, Bryant entered a guilty plea to second-degree murder, conspiracy, and attempted armed robbery. He was sentenced to 15 years to life imprisonment. John Curtis Dortch was charged with felony murder under the theory that he was culpable for Officer Cobb's death as part of a robbery conspiracy, even though he didn't pull the trigger and was not at the scene when she was killed. During his trial in June 1975, Dortch entered a guilty plea to second-degree murder, conspiracy, and attempted armed robbery. He received a sentence of 15 years to life in prison and served nearly 18 years before being released. Officer Cobb's funeral on Tuesday, September 24, 1974, was described as ornate and large, even by Washington, D.C. standards. The streets leading to Holy Comforter Catholic Church in southeast Washington were lined with hundreds of police officers standing at attention, some having traveled as far away as Hawaii. High-ranking officials attended the crowded service, including then-Mayor of the District of Columbia, Walter Washington, and FBI Director Clarence Kelly. At the hour of the funeral, President Gerald R. Ford called for a moment of silence while addressing an International Association of Police Chiefs conference being held across town. President Ford stated that Officer Cobb has our lasting admiration for the cause of law enforcement and well-being of our society, a cause for which she made the highest sacrifice. The president also sent a letter of condolence to the Cobb family, which her parents Gloria and Clinton Cobb have preserved along with her badge number 321 and the boots she wore when she was killed. Ford noted in his address that Cobb's death established the fact that the criminal makes no distinction between the sexes. Officer Gail Cobb holds the tragic distinction of being the first female police officer in the United States shot and killed in the line of duty, according to FBI statistics that began tracking such incidences in 1960. She was also the first uniformed female officer in the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia to be killed in the line of duty, and to this day, she remains the only female MPD officer to have died in the line of duty. In the wake of her death, nations poured in from around the country for the benefit of her 4-year-old son, Damon. A trust fund was established that ultimately totaled $140,000, equivalent to nearly $900,000 in today's currency. Cobb's parents, Clinton and Gloria, faithfully managed this trust until Damon reached 18. The tragedy had profound and lasting effects on the Cobb family. When young Damon turned 18, he demanded all the trust fund money, which he subsequently spent on cars, parties, and friends within 6 months. Years later, he acknowledged, "It wasn't my intention to just blow the money. I was going to spend some and save the rest to make investments or whatever." Tragically, Damon Demetrius Cobb followed a troubled path. He is currently serving a life sentence in prison at the Western Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland, after being found guilty of first-degree murder in a 1992 killing of a Forestville man. Cobb's parents stated in 1996 that they believe his mother's murder, which occurred when Damon was just 4 years old, deeply influenced his life and led to his legal predicament. Damon remembered his mother fondly. She would say, "Give me an Eskimo smooch," and we would rub our noses together like Eskimos. His grandfather Clinton recalled he loved to visit his mother's grave. Quite often we would go there just so he could visit with her. In 1992, after serving nearly 18 years, John Willie Bryant was released on parole. However, his freedom was short-lived. In 1997, the D.C. Parole Board found that Bryant had violated the terms of his parole by possessing cocaine and marijuana, as well as testing positive for marijuana use. In a controversial decision that stunned law enforcement officials and prosecutors, the board initially revoked Bryant's parole during a hearing on July 31, 1997, but then immediately reinstated it, declining to send him back to prison. This decision came after what was described as a prolonged efforts by law enforcement and prosecutors to prompt the parole board to take action regarding Bryant's violations. Officer Gail Cobb has been honored with numerous memorials and tributes over the decades since her death. She is buried at Lincoln Memorial Cemetery in Suitland, near the border between Washington, D.C. and Prince George's County. Her name is inscribed on the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Judiciary Square, Washington, D.C. On December 23, 2020, the district dedicated the 100 block of 14th Place Northeast, the block where her family home at 1421 D North Street Northeast was located, as Gail Cobb Way. Her parents, Clinton and Gloria Cobb, who were in their 90s at the time, attended the ceremony. Clinton Cobb stated that he and his wife were glad they lived long enough to see this day come. Additionally, a park in Mount Vernon Triangle neighborhood was named Cobb Park in her honor. According to research commissioned by the Mount Vernon Triangle Community Improvement District, the neighborhood informally named this triangular parcel of green space Cobb's Park shortly after Officer Cobb's death. The park, located at 200 H Street Northwest above the 395 freeway, underwent extensive renovation and now features a gathering plaza with public art, a water fountain, a play area, dog park, and bioretention facilities. In October 2024, the D.C. Council passed the Gail Adrian Cobb Memorial Recognition Resolution of 2024 on the 50th anniversary of her death, formally recognizing her legacy as the true daughter of the District of Columbia community who gave the ultimate sacrifice to protect the safety of residents of the District of Columbia. Officer Gail Cobb's sacrifice continues to inspire and educate. The Association of Retired Police Officers, D.C., has established the Gail Cobb Project with plans to honor all first responders in the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia area on September 20th of each year. Her story serves as a powerful reminder of the courage required of those who serve in law enforcement, regardless of gender, and the real dangers they face in protecting their communities. Her parents, Gloria and Clinton Cobb, who celebrated their 75th wedding anniversary, have kept her memory alive through the memorial they maintain in their living room. The memorial includes President Ford's letter of condolence, her badge, and boots she wore on that tragic day. As one retired MPD sergeant noted, Officer Gail Cobb was the first female officer killed in the line of duty in the nation. Officer Cobb demonstrated unwavering faith towards the values and the safety of good citizens of our great city. These facts are what have earned Officer Gail A. Cobb her greatness. So we have somebody who was still on probation, who did what she could, and yet it ended in tragedy all the same. Pioneers don't always, make it through. And that's a lot of times we forget about that. We want the happy ending for somebody who broke barriers. And a lot of times that's not the case. So next week we'll do a slightly different case. I hope this gave you something to ponder. If you like what you hear, comment, like, subscribe, and share. And we will meet again next week. Goodbye.